population or whatever we can reach of the immediacy of the danger of World War III, but also we presented an alternative of cooperation, basically by appealing to the countries of the West, mainly European and European nations and the United States, to join hands with the countries of the global South, the global majority, to engage in real development, industrialization of Africa, the Middle East, and other parts of the global South. And we presented a report which you can access together with the proceedings of the conference. And I would ask all of you, maybe you make that of your Nelson Mandela good deed, so to speak, which Dr. Naledi Pandor had asked us to do, the former Foreign Minister of South Africa, or Minister of International Relations. So basically, we want to go into a campaign to really say that there is an alternative to World War III, that we have to overcome geopolitics and start to cooperate in development, because the new name for peace is development. This could not come at a more urgent moment, because it seems that some of the Western leaders are just determined to drive the world into a nuclear catastrophe. And since this is not coming just from one voice, but coming from all corners, from the mass media, from many political corners, there is no question that in the background, or not so much background any longer, there is an active planning for a showdown. Now, the deputy chair of the most ancient British think tank, the Royal Institute for whatever its name is, RUSI, it's the short of it, Malcolm Chalmer, already in May 22, had proposed that NATO should take over Crimea and that way cause a nuclear crisis with Russia, have what he called a Cuban Missile Crisis on steroids, and then at the height of such a nuclear showdown, that would create, hopefully, maybe the condition where Russia could be forced to negotiate. To have a mindset like that is extremely worrisome. Now, this same gentleman has, in March of this year, in an interview with The Economist, basically suggested another such bravado operation by suggesting that from a British submarine, there should be launched a nuclear missile, not on a large Russian city where too many casualties would be the result. No, it should be just a military base, which should be attacked with a nuclear bomb. Not a real big bomb, he's graciously saying, no, just a little bomb of the size of Hiroshima, that would do. And, he hopes that would have the same effect of causing Russia to finally negotiate. Now, that would all be just, academic bubble, but unfortunately, this same person, Malcolm Chalmers, is now leaving his position in this RUSI think tank to become the strategic advisor of the British Defense Secretary, John Healey. And, also that would just, be a worrisome event if you had not a very ominous upgrading of the so-called coalition of the willing. Now, that is a reflection of the fact that within NATO, fortunately, not every member is agreeing with the present course of escalation, like sending ground troops into Ukraine and keep supplying Ukraine with long-range weapons of all kinds. But, it is this coalition of the willing now spearheaded by Great Britain, by France, by Germany. Last week, there was a meeting between Macron and Starmer where they agreed to coordinate their nuclear arsenals better, because after all, they are the two nuclear armed powers in Europe. And now, yesterday, Chancellor Merz was also in London signing with Starmer what they call a German-British friendship treaty, the so-called Kensington Treaty, Kensington being a reference to a palace and the role of Queen Victoria, and Merz actually named her, which shows you this guy, this chancellor, I'm sorry, has no sense. I mean, Victoria was the time when the British were actively planning World War I, mainly against Germany, among other things. And to make that reference just shows you, I don't know what it shows. It shows you for sure that Chancellor Merz has a liking for the British Empire, which she is now gladly submitting to. But it also, is an extremely worrisome development. So I think that therefore, if the Times of India had an article basically describing our Berlin conference, saying, is Europe becoming the battlefield of the coming confrontation with Russia, then that is an accurate description. Now, unfortunately, as I said, this is not the only extremely worrisome development, but you had at the same time basically the US Supreme Commander in Europe, the Supreme Commander of Europe and Africa, Christopher Donoghue. They had a conference just a couple of days ago in Wiesbaden, where they discussed, and Donoghue was proudly announcing that NATO is now prepared to completely cut off the enclave of Kaliningrad, which is a tripwire. I mean, there's no question. The Russians have made this very clear. They have the Iskander missiles deployed in this region to just cut off Kaliningrad in the form of a blitzkrieg. So, I mean, I can only say that the whole discussion, to keep escalating like that, keep sending long-range missiles into Ukraine for use far into the territory of Russia, we are on a very quick road to an escalation to World War III if this is not stopped. Now, the Middle East situation we will hear about later. The Gaza situation remains one of absolute, it's a symbol of the moral decay of the West. And if not remedied, I think it is the sign of the downfall of the entire international law. Now, fortunately, the Hague group, a group of developing countries, met in Bogota, and they have a plan of action, what to do about it. And I could only hope that in the United Nations, appropriate support for this action can be found in the short term. Now, there are other important developments going in an opposite direction. One is for sure that Russia is making active signs and steps to revive the RIC formula, Russia, India, China. This was the idea that these three nuclear powers, which was a group initiated by Prime Minister Primakov in the 90s, that combination should be revived. And I think this is a very good step. And my late husband, Lyndon LaRouche, had picked up at the time of the Primakov proposal, suggesting that the United States should be part of this combination, and then all problems could be solved. Now, that does not seem to be the direction President Trump is going right now to, but that is the option he really would have if he wanted to become actually a candidate for the Peace Nobel Prize, and not just as a token, but in real history. Now, President Lula da Silva from Brazil strongly is opposing what comes from Trump right now in terms of the announcement of the 50-day deadline to impose 50% on tariffs against Russia and secondary targets, but also against all other countries, which is still the same kind of economic warfare, which can only lead to an early collapse of the financial system. Now, Lula also said, reminded Trump that he has not been elected emperor of the world, but president of the United States, rejecting such proposals. Now, we also are intending to use the time between now and the 28th and 29th of July, which is a very short time, to revive our campaign for the Oasis Plan, because the two-state conference, which had been canceled for June, is now taking place end of this month. And I would call on all supporters of the Oasis Plan to revive your efforts to, use all channels you have into the United Nations, into this two-state conference, to basically say that the only way how we have any hope for peace would be a combination of what the Bogota Hague group is proposing, as well as the Oasis Plan as the real plan for peace, for development. So I think that we have, a lot of work. We have to, Dr. Pandor called on everybody in the context of our Berlin conference to make the IPC the largest possible organization ever, get people to join it. It is more urgent than ever before, because the war danger increases practically by the hour and by the minute, and the very existence of civilization is at stake as it was never at stake before. But with the package, that we have to get the countries of the West to cooperate with the global majority to put real development on the table for Africa. We have presented a draft proposal for the industrialization of Africa. We have the Oasis Plan. Both of these plans are in cohesion with the Africa Agenda 2063, and that is the way to go. We have to leave geopolitics behind us and go for real development as the basis for peace. So that is what I wanted to say to you in the beginning.
Great. Thank you, Helga. And I'll just add that, just all of the things that were pieced together, the various panels for this conference were absolutely excellent in the way it flowed in together and left you with a real optimistic sense when you finally came to the last panel. And personally, I was very moved by a number of reports that people were giving by various German contacts who were saying that they were so happy and excited to finally be talking with people that, they thought they were the only ones who felt this way. And anyway, I just wanted to make sure that our people who are on here, we will be preparing for another conference, hopefully soon. And it'd be wonderful to bring all of you to the next one. So hopefully we'll see people, more and more of IPC participants coming to the conference. Well, we are having a little bit of technical difficulties with our next speaker. So we're going to, I think what we should do is come back. Unless we can resolve this right this second. Okay, so I think what we should do is come back and bring in Professor Falk when we resolve this technical issue that we're having, and continue with a special video which was sent in from Mario Isono. He is, I apologize. He He is from the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, International Cooperation, and the General Director for Diaspora, the affairs focal point for the United Nations Regional Center for Peace and Disarmament in Africa. And he's sending in his video greetings to the International Peace Coalition. Could we pull that up, Dave?
And that would be from Equatorial Guinea in Africa.
Yes, thank you.
Mm-hmm. Good afternoon. My name is Mariano from Equatorial Guinea. On the occasion of Nelson Mandela Day, I'm here to make this video, and I want to recall Nelson Mandela's most profound words, who said, quote, "Forgiveness frees the soul," close quote. He spent 27 years in prison when people expected that he would reciprocate in an unkind fashion to those who treated him badly. Well, he said plainly and simply that this wasn't his purpose. His purpose was to fight for a just cause, to fight for rights that had been denied to a group of people. And thanks to that philosophy of life, his figure as a politician transcended all borders. Nelson Mandela is an example of overcoming difficulties, an example of struggle, an example of a spokesperson, above all, in defense of human values, of fundamental rights, rights that are denied to people in many parts of the world. And above all, Nelson Mandela teaches us the moral lesson that, as the founder of the Schiller Institute says, quote, "A world where everyone has a place, a world where we all need each other," close quote. May each of us be a Nelson Mandela at home, at work, in our work, and above all, in the world. May we learn from Nelson Mandela, outstretch our hands to each other, and make this world an ever better place. Happy Nelson Mandela Day to everyone, and embrace to all.
Wonderful. Thank you for sending in this fantastic greetings to the International Peace Coalition. And again, I apologize for not stating where Mario Osono is from. But yes, Mario Osono from Equatorial Guinea in Africa, and he works for the country's foreign minister in the General Directorate for Diaspora Affairs. He's also the focal point for UN Regional Center for Peace and Disarmament in Africa. So thank you again for that. And just checking here to make sure if we were able to resolve our other technical problem, and it does not appear to be so. So we're going to continue with the agenda and then come back. Okay, so next on our agenda, we have, I believe, Stefan Ossenkopf from the Schiller Institute, who's the moderator, who was one of the moderators on the panel, and I had the joy to work with you actually in Berlin, going out into the streets, talking to people, organizing folks. You held a fantastic press conference for Ray McGovern and Elizabeth Murray, which went very, very well. But I think it would be important to get the feedback from you and thoughts, reflections from what happened at this conference and what people have been responding to since then. So why don't you go ahead, Stefan?
Okay, I hope my voice comes through all right. Okay.
Yes.
Well, as you were mentioning, Anastasia, first of all, thank you for having me on the program. Very important process that's going on with the IPC internationally. And we had a very intense time, as you were already mentioned, going into the conference, the organizing, the outreach into new layers, into all the diplomatic corps here in Berlin, where I'm speaking from, going onto the streets, finding a lot of new youth in front of the, especially the universities, etc. That was a very intense process, and I think, as Helga already mentioned, this is not just a one-time event. This, first of all, is the conference here in Berlin on July 12th, 13th is, of course, also the successor of the New Jersey conference, which was in May 24th, 25th. the proceedings of which everybody should also watch online. And other conferences will follow, because the task that we have set is that the world should definitely tilt towards a new paradigm of cooperation, peaceful coexistence, development, and a new security order. The alternative, Helga has made it very stark, had made the contrast very clear. The alternative is basically chaos, is a world where man against man acts like a wolf. And that's why the conference had the very apt and fitting title, Man is not a wolf to man. And there is an alternative, not just in terms of international relations, but also in the outlook of human nature. So I thought this conference has really fulfilled and accomplished its task. We were able to bring voices of the global South, of Africa, of Latin America, but also of China, Russia, and others, to an audience and leaders in Europe and in the United States, and bring them into a dialogue discussing the common aims of mankind. We were able to, a lot of the speakers were able to speak about Lyndon LaRouche's concepts of physical economy. We had a great evening concert. We were definitely making clear that there's an alternative to rock, sex, drugs, counterculture, which is the classical outlook and the dialogue of civilizations. We also had singers from China, for example, joining up with singers from Europe with traditional songs. And I think the people are very moved, not just by the speakers, but also by the music. Now, concerning the speakers, as Helga already said, Naledi Pandor from South Africa was making the point that from Berlin, this can be a starting point of a real change in Germany, and that the Schiller Institute has to bear the responsibility to do that. And that was also the response I got from a lot of contacts when I talked to them after the conference. They said that the Schiller Institute has really put itself in the center of this discussion of a global international new development order. And then there is no match, so to speak, in terms of organizing and institutions in Germany, apart from what the Schiller Institute does. I think it's very important that we had what you already mentioned, Anastasia, the press conferences, or the press conference, but also other meetings with Ray McGovern and Elizabeth Murray, who are really the voice of sanity and of irony of the West. And especially Ray, despite his age and certain, challenges that he had to overcome, he wanted to really come to Germany and engage with old friends, but also see new ones. And we had this press conference with alternative media, not non-mainstream media, and they all delivered. I think we had now a video interview with Elizabeth Murray already was streamed, was put on the website of one television station. The Ray McGovern interview will be posted on Monday, I was told. We had 2 or 3 or even more written interviews and articles that were posted on other websites, very important websites, actually, read by hundreds of thousands of Germans that don't believe the narrative of the mainstream media and the political pundits anymore. So I think this will have a large impact in terms of visibility. And also the media, some of them came to our conference and also interviewed the Chinese professor Zhang Weiwei, who was really a very important guest of our conference, because he is not just a very important voice within China in terms of being an eminent scholar at the Fudan University, which is, I guess, one of the top 3 universities in China. But he is a million-seller book author about the Chinese model, because he thought, what he said in the foreword of his book, that a lot of Chinese believe in the success of their system, but they cannot explain it, and they don't know why it works. And he set out the task to write systematically what is the Chinese model. And then the demand was so much also from people outside of China that he translated it himself. And so he became also very, very well known internationally and was put into a lot of these TV battles and so forth with, liberal people such as Francis Fukuyama and so forth. Anyway, he's very prominent, and that gives us, it was a great honor to have him, and also to gives us a lot of weight. The responses I got from a lot of the contacts is that not just him, but wow, you're able to bring together so strong voices, so prominent voices from all over the world. That's I didn't know that was possible. So we had a part, of course, from Helga's keynote speech, and we had other keynote speeches from Jacques Cheminade, from Harley Schlanger. I cannot do all of them justice by talking about the conference just for 5 minutes, but I think we also had a very great representative of the good United States, the real United States, the revolutionary United States, especially also in the form of the youth movement that presented concepts of science, of history and analyzing history, but also showing true representatives of classical culture in terms of heroism. Having said that, we also had with Ray McGovern and Elizabeth Murray a couple of meetings, especially an association for small and medium-sized entrepreneurs and enterprises. I think they represent between 5,000 and 10,000 of them. And they had a very fruitful discussion, not just about the economy and the state of the German economy, but also about the trade war of Trump and many, many issues, the Middle East, Russia, because they have a lot of contacts in the BRICS countries. And they said they are absolutely determined to maintain them, not give in to political pressure. And so they did a photograph with Ray and Elizabeth, and they put it on their LinkedIn account, which will be seen, I'm sure, by tens of thousands of people. I think they also put it in their newsletter. So it's a great, opening, not only for them, but also for us. And then we had a discussion with the Eurasian Society. They also invited book authors and experts and so forth to discuss with Ray and Elizabeth. So all in all, I think the entire package, and of course, we also had the seminar that Helga mentioned on Monday, with more than 30 participants from us, but also from other organizations, presenting this the so-called China-Europe perspectives for third-party cooperation, and which is a work in progress report. But what we're doing is basically, or the task that Helga set us was, we need tremendous outreach, really systematically mapping out who in the global south, who in the global north would support such a program, would contribute to such a program, so that we have really the economic and the economic program ready to be used, for the development paradigm that has to take over in right now. So having said that, I think my 5 minutes are up, but I think I have maybe given you a kind of a picture of what's happening. And this wasn't just a one-time event. This gives us a lot of tasks for the weeks and months ahead.
Well, that's quite a bit to go in 5 minutes. Thank you, Stefan, for that. And yeah, actually, I would just like to add in, it was a completely packed room. I think the room could only fit about 200 people, and they had to rotate people into the room throughout the conference, especially for panel one, because people really wanted to be inside and hear the whole thing. But I actually have a few pictures, and I just want to show a few pictures for people. I won't show the audience just to protect people's identities. I understand that this is a dictatorship here in Germany, so I don't want people to feel like we're going to dox them. But here's just a few wonderful pictures from panel 1. Stefan was the moderator, did an excellent job. The collaborators that also took part in the conference, Shang Weiwei was there in person, which was absolutely fantastic. Dr. Naledi Pandor, who came in live over the internet, Ray McGovern. There was a fantastic discussion with everyone through the first panel. This was a lot of fun. So just to give people a sense of the type of dialogue process that was happening, and I probably could go through, all of the panels and take another hour to do that, but I just want to emphasize this particular part was the music. The music I thought was incredibly important in order to set people, given that the situation has been so intense and the gravity of what's happening in the world, that you have to set your mind in the right placement in order to be able to receive the intensity of the situation and to have the confidence that you can do something about it. So I just want to really emphasize this for people in going forward, that I think we should take up the task of singing more in our field deployments and organizing. We definitely used the Die Gedanken sind frei, and I'm probably butchering it, but the Die Gedanken sind frei, which was really fun. And we actually got invited to a music Abend in Berlin, and we had the whole music Abend sing Die Gedanken sind frei, and people were very, very moved. And we'll be following up with a lot of people like this. But just over and over and over again, I think channeling people's best culture within yourself, wherever you are, finding that classical artistic composition, so that way you can organize your mind, so you can organize other people's minds in the best possible way to take the best action. So I just want to emphasize that part of it, and what I wanted to say about the conference. The young people, the discussion, Helga, that you had with the young people, I thought was very important. And then the task that many of the young people are going to be taking in recruiting around the world. So we should look forward to that. It was a real joy to be here in person and meeting and talking with people. And I'm very eager to get to the next one, to see what else we're going to do next. So anyway, so fantastic. Thank you, Stefan. And that was my 5 minutes, I think, that I threw in there too. Something like that. But next we have a report coming in. Let me see if we have our friend Sebastian. I may have to message him in a moment. Yeah, well, we will be having a report coming in from France. But I wanted to see if oh, Tim's in touch. Oh, let's see if we
I just promoted Sebastian to a panelist.
Oh, there we go. That's why I couldn't find him.
Yep.
There we go. Okay.
Hello?
Hey, Sebastian.
Oh, hello. Hi. To be sure, you hear me well?
We can hear you fine.
Okay, great. So we right now, I'm in Paris. I'm going to give you a report on the field because we are deploying in Paris just after the Berlin conference. We invited our Mexican friend Carolina here in Paris. She's deploying right now. You see our field deployment with some banners. It's with Solidarité et Progrès, a partner also of the Schiller Institute, and we have also the Schiller Institute coming here. So we're here just to to give a sense of what was the conference in Berlin, what was the huge event with the participation of all the people of the world defending this project for peace. With Carolina, what was interesting is that we called the embassy of Mexico in France, and we had a meeting with one of the advisor on economic cooperation. Well, it was that what happened is that this advisor was not very. We talked about the Oasis plan and all the projects we have also for Mexico, the Plino plan, and the question of the water, the importance of the water development. And what happened is what he said, well, it's not really the main what I'm working on, but you know, the ambassador, she's a woman, she had worked on recycling water. She knows about water projects, so you should write to her. So now we have a more direct contact with the ambassador. We have to write to her and see if we can have a meeting in August or September. So what's interesting is this following, after the Berlin conference, we can brief these institutions. We also have some contact with some association links between Mexico and France, and we have a meeting tomorrow with a young contact with Carolina. So, and we're deploying just to bring the solutions. So you can see, or here the people are discussing with young people. So we have to recruit these young people to the fight. Not always easy, but good reactions also with this banner here. And after I let okay, so you have this ironical banner where we say that what happened to Iraq is now happening to Iran, and we don't have to do that again. So that's all. So we are here with our friends, activists, and we're continuing to fight. So thank you very much, and let's do it again. Let's continue this fight. Thank you from Paris. Bye.
Thank you, Sebastian. That was excellent. Yeah, I'll pull up just a couple of pictures that you sent in, which were really fun. Can you see this okay?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, there's a couple of pictures that they have from their deployment today, which looks very fun and exciting. I see. Oh, there's Carolina. Carolina's there. Excellent.
She's with us. She's just talking to people speaking Spanish. So we have having a lot of fun.
Wonderful. Yeah, well, thank you for that. Thank you, Sebastian, and thank you everybody there for the work that you're doing. So, okay. Well, I wanted to go back to Helga to see if you had any response to people thus far. And then I'm going to check on a couple of things here to see if you had a response to any of the dialogue so far. Oh, maybe she had to...
may be momentarily unavailable. So let me just jump in and see. I've noticed we're waiting for two things. One is I noticed that President Donald Ramotar of Guyana is on this call, as he very frequently is. He was also a featured speaker at the Berlin conference, addressing it by Zoom video hookup. And I'd like to see if he's available or to make some comments now, either about that conference or the whole world situation, the war danger, the situation around the Palestinian genocide, and so on. So if you're there, President Ramotar, and want to say a word or two, that would be great. Yep, there he is.
Thanks for having me. No, I followed the conference as much as I could from Guyana, and I thought you had a very good activity, a very important activity at this point in time to raise solidarity for what is taking place in many parts of the world. Since then, I think things are moving at a pace. I see in the internal politics in the United States is becoming very interesting, and that might probably help to push forward some change. At the same time, there are the development recently in Colombia, the conference in South Africa, sponsored by South Africa and Colombia, in order to get more solidarity and some concrete action being taken for the people of Gaza. I think that's an important one, and I believe also the position taken by the rapporteur, the special rapporteur Albanese. I think she needs a lot of support now because I think she's under a lot of attack, and it's time for us to ensure that she knows that she's not alone, and that the vast majority of the world supports her position, and opposed to what is being done against her, to move now to personal sanctions that she is about to face. As I said at the conference, I think that she has been consistently proven courageous and brave, and maybe we should consider promoting her for the Nobel Peace Prize for what she's standing up for. And so I think that's extremely important. And recently too, we see in Latin America, there has been a strong reaction from the part of President Lula to the interference of the United States president into their internal affairs, talking about sanctioning and putting tariffs against Brazil because because Bolsonaro is facing charges in Brazil. And I think that blatant interference in the affairs of Brazil is extremely dangerous. And we should also ensure that Lula is given a lot of stance that he is taking to tell the Americans that he is not the emperor of the world, and he cannot dictate to countries like Brazil and so forth. So all in all, I think since the conference last week, things have been moving in a more kind of positive direction, and I hope that we can have some more pressure being put, because the Americans seem to be getting more and more isolated at the United Nations level, but they seems not to care. But I think we got to keep the pressure up to force them to take a position. On the question of Ukraine too, I think Mr. Trump's position is becoming very, very inconsistent, sliding backwards and forwards. And the latest position is very, very dangerous. Some of the talks, I know that they denied it, but many people seem to think that it's serious when he was encouraging Zelensky to strike at Moscow. And I think that is a very dangerous thing he's doing. I think instead of European Union and the United States and them that can put the pressure to bring an end, because Russia is still open to dialogue, still open to discussion, still open to diplomacy. It is the West that is refusing the diplomacy and encouraging this war to continue, where now it seems like if children will be getting involved, that the Ukrainians are moving practically to recruit children to start the fighting now. And we should be very careful with that. So those are the comments I would like to make at this point. I want to congratulate you for a very successful conference that you've had.
Thank you. Excellent. Thank you, President Ramatar, for that. Dennis Small, were you going to give a report on what's been happening in Brazil?
Yeah, I can jump in for a minute on this. First of all, thank you, President Ramatar, for helping to make that conference successful. As we had designed from the beginning, it is of crucial importance to bring the voices of the global South that have had it with 500 years of colonialism and are actively pursuing viable alternatives to this decrepit, collapsing genocidal system, to have those voices heard in the capitals of Europe and the United States, to make it clear that there is another way other than war and genocide. And what better than the voices of an ex-president of Guyana, of a former foreign minister of South Africa, as in the case of Dr. Naledi Pandor, to be those voices. In that same regard, I've been keeping an eye on my WhatsApp here, because I've been in touch by WhatsApp with Tim Rush, who is a member of the Schiller Institute and is currently in Brazil as a correspondent for EIR. He was at the BRICS Summit as a journalist, and he also held a number of meetings with other journalists and other people from around the world, both before the BRICS Summit and after the BRICS Summit, which is, it's the other side of the street of what I was just mentioning, of having the voice of the South heard in the North. It's extraordinarily important that the voice of the sane North, that is the voice of those who, like the Schiller Institute and the IPC, do not agree with the idea of nuclear war against Russia, do not agree with the idea of genocide in Gaza, do not agree with the idea of cryptocurrency and speculative looting of the nations of the world, that voice be heard coming clearly from the capitals of the North in the global South. In other words, that they do have allies and interlocutors in the North. And Tim was able to do precisely that, both at a meeting of journalists and activists prior to the BRICS Summit per se, and then again, just afterwards, at a follow-up meeting of BRICS journalists. In each case, he was the only speaker on the agenda from the United States. It's a shame that there was not more, but it sure is better than none that someone speaking on behalf of the Schiller Institute and the voice of Lyndon and Helga LaRouche bring the clear view of the solution to these countries that are looking for answers and ways out. And I will be getting a fuller report from him. I've been hoping he's on his way to the airport to come back. And I was hoping he'd be able to get on to give a report firsthand, but that's apparently not possible, at least at this point. If he does hop on, we'll do that. But that's, I think, one of the strategic dimensions of this that we've been discussing. Let me just add one additional thought. Anyone who has attended either as a participant, as a diplomat, or as a political leader, or as a journalist, any of these major international conferences knows very well that as important as it is what happens in the limelight on the days of the conference, the speeches given and so on, which are significant, often equally important and sometimes even more important is what happens in the discussions on the sidelines, in the corridors, in the private bilateral discussions, and in the other related meetings. And I would just encourage people, in looking at the BRICS summit that just occurred, to not be confused or thrown off by the headlines which are prevalent in the United States and Europe, which was, oh, the BRICS summit was really something of a failure and a letdown. After all, the president of China, Xi Jinping, and the president of Russia, Vladimir Putin, were not able to attend or didn't attend, and therefore it was a diminished conference. That's not true. There were certainly problems and difficulties which are being worked out by the BRICS meetings on the alternatives to the current catastrophic situation. However, the irony of that intentional misevaluation, in my view, is that the single most important thing that happened at the BRICS summit in terms of movement forward was the proposal that was made to that summit by Putin with the backing of Xi Jinping explicitly for the creation of, quote, new investment platforms. And this is now being, from the Russian side, being cited with capital letters, NIP. In other words, this is the idea for the creation of new credit institutions independent from the speculative, genocidal, dollar-denominated system run by the City of London and Wall Street, but to create development-oriented credit, Alexander Hamilton style, for great development projects to improve the well-being of all of humanity, not just some. And Putin went into the meeting having announced through his Kremlin spokesman that Xi Jinping backed this proposal, and having also gotten significant support from President Lula, it's of some ironic amusement, at least to me, that the most significant thing that actually happened in Rio de Janeiro was done by the two presidents who are not physically present. So always keep your eye on the ball on these things, and if you're confused and not clear, read EIR.news, promotion for EIR, read EIR.news, come to the IPC meetings, and you'll get a bead on what's actually happening strategically. So that's what I would throw into the hopper for the discussion at this point.
Great. Thank you, Dennis. Okay. Well, I wanted to come back to Helga if she's available before we go into the discussion. If not, we can just continue into the discussion period. Unfortunately, we couldn't resolve the other technical problems, but I'm sure we...
Oh,
There we go. Great. Please go ahead, Helga, if you have any response to anything said so far before we continue.
no, I think the description of the conference we had was quite accurate, the different aspects, and I think the organizing from Paris also gives people an idea that, we are not talking about academic presentations, but we really want to engage many institutions, but also just so-called ordinary people, because the more you look at how the world is going, we are in such an unbelievably, I think unprecedented danger of civilization. And therefore, my appeal to you, and, obviously what other speakers have said is become active, don't look at the IPC process as a thing to just watch. Become active, because the world is more in need of peace activists. And I can only repeat what Dr. Pandor had said. He said, we have to work to make the IPC the most powerful peace organization on the planet by uniting everybody, because the problem is that there are many groups, even in Germany, who are, Germany, I'm saying even in Germany, because Germany is one of the most controlled and occupied places still. But there are many people who are really so absolutely frightened and concerned. And when they realize that we are not, that they are not the only ones, that there are many co-thinkers, it gives them courage to speak out. Because I think we need to change the policy. I think in Germany, what Chancellor Merz is proposing is really going in the wrong direction. And I'm really calling on all people in France, Macron being in a similar orientation. But let's really move Europe in the direction of cooperation with the global South, and all the problems could be solved very, very easily. And eventually the United States, as their 250th anniversary next year, America could go back to their own anti-colonial tradition of the American Revolution, the American War of Independence, which was the first anti-colonial war in history. And all problems would be easy to be solved. And that is not an empty promise, I know, because the BRICS countries would receive Europe and even the United States with open arms if they would just say, we want to stop this insane geopolitical confrontation. So contact Anastasia after the call, and let's just broaden our outreach by several orders of magnitude.
Excellent. Yes, please do. People can reach me at my email, which I'll post in the chat in just a moment, or you can go to the schillerinstitute.com, send questions into question@schillerinstitute.com. And we're going to be moving on to the discussion period. If you are on YouTube, Twitter, Rumble, wherever this is being streamed that you're finding this. If you'd like to join the discussion period, please register. You can do that by going to the schillerinstitute.com, and right on the top of the page, there is a registration button. And you go there and register for the International Peace Coalition, and you will be sent the Zoom link. Excuse me. And you'll be able to join the discussion. So, and with that, Dave.